Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore is the third of 5 installments of the Fantastic Beasts series. Or is it the last one? They have not announced they're doing the 2 more because they were waiting on the box office results for this latest one to see if they would greenlight them, but it barely cracked 100 million domestically. It didn't even get to like 500 million worldwide, which is like a pretty good, signifier that they would want to make more. 500 million, that's a pretty good number. Yikes. This could be it, folks. This movie is once again directed by David Yates and written by J.K. Rowling, but this time also co-written by Steve Kloves, who has had a hand in almost all of the Harry Potter film adaptations, except for, I believe, Order of the Phoenix, but he has come back to co-write with J.K. Rowling. This movie, Mads Mikkelsen replacing Johnny Depp as Grindelwald has a plan, and it's really, really cooking up. He's gonna become the president of wizards, and, Dumbledore and our heroes can't allow that. So they come up with a plan made up of nonsense to stop him. Nonsense because they're also trying to trick his, magic foresight. He can see the future. Kind of. That's the movie. Let's talk about it. The original Harry Potter film series is incredible. It's really good. There's not a bad film in that series. There's one that I like the least out of all of them, and conveniently enough, it's Order of the Phoenix, which I mentioned Steve Kloves didn't really have much involvement with. But every other film, it's really fun or really great. They've got a lot of great work in that series. So when they were coming back with a prequel, it's Fantastic Beasts. It's going to be taking place around this time Dumbledore fought this other wizard that they kind of name dropped in Deathly Hallows Part 1, but there's not going to be any, direct references to like Potters or anything like that. I was like, okay, cool. This could be a really cool expansion, really create a new story, but also keep those elements, the magic world elements that people loved in the Harry Potter series, make a whole new thing. Let's see how this goes. And J.K. Rowling is involved, the creator of the original series. Should be great. And the first Fantastic Beasts movie I am fine with. It's a solid little kickoff into, hey, this is what could be. And, it's not perfect. It's not, the greatest, kickoff like Sorcerer's Stone was. But it was fine enough where you could build something off of that and really continue in a fantastic new direction where everyone would be like, yeah, that first movie was all right, but it led to these and they're incredible. And then, of course, they followed up Where to Find Them with Crimes of Grindelwald. And that was... I don't know if I hate it as much as everyone else, and I don't have any strong feelings positively toward that movie. It's mostly just, there's a lot of solid ideas in there that I wish maybe they spaced out a lot more. It's all just a big old cluster, and it really showed that J.K. Rowling, despite the fact that, she wrote those books, as far as like a screenwriter, this is probably where she's lacking because she's written it almost as if it's a book, you get these big exposition dumps. Legitimately, most of the screenplay is kind of like you're reading a book and then all of a sudden something will remind a character of something and because, it's a book, so, you are being essentially narrated to by, depending on how it's written, they will maybe go on a couple paragraphs of like, oh yeah, let me explain this thing real quick, it might have something to do with something, that's how they do it. And it feels like that, but in a movie, but that doesn't work, have characters just stop everything and just talk and exposition, like, oh my gosh, space out these ideas. Why is Newt Scamander the main character still? Like, you can probably switch it up. It feels like, that cast did really well in the first movie, so we were desperate to find more stuff to do with them. It just didn't really work as a movie for me. And it didn't work for a lot of people too. I think a lot of Harry Potter fans were like, yeah, not the biggest fan of that. I don't remember the exact box office results, but it was definitely lower than they were expecting, and it made a lot of people kind of just disinterested in this new one. Even when the marketing was kicking off, it was kind of like, who cares? I had like the slightest hope just because, okay, they're past Crimes of Grindelwald. There's no way they can ignore the criticism they receive. They have to try to do better. And also, they brought back Steve Kloves. As I mentioned, he has a hand in almost every Harry Potter film adaptation. So maybe pairing him up with J.K. Rowling, he can help kind of streamline these ideas or try to really focus and make it a cohesive narrative. That would be great. She clearly needs help. Not just in screenwriting, she also needs help accepting transgender people. But, that's a topic for some other people to talk about, not me. But that also is a hindrance on people's engagement in this fucking series. So I was really surprised when we walk into the movie, and the movie starts, you get this kind of like, not really a flashback, it's kind of a, confusing kind of magical meeting scene between Grindelwald and Dumbledore. They carry on their scene, and then once it ends, the movie starts in a way where the last movie didn't. Like, the way the last movie ended didn't really set up this. Like, the movie picks up and it's like time has kind of passed, it seems like. Characters are splintered off doing their own thing. But at the end of Crimes of Grindelwald, sure, Newt and Dumbledore are walking alone towards Hogwarts, but all these other characters that are there are just like standing on the bridge watching him as if they're like waiting for a plan, waiting to be summoned, like, hey, we got an idea, let's all gather. Like, they're all ready to go. But this movie picks up, Jacob is back at his bakery. Tina, they give her a written off explanation for where she is, and we'll talk more about that in a second. And all of a sudden we also have some new characters that we're going to be following too. So the way it opened up, I was like, ooh, this is kind of jarring for me, because I wasn't really expecting this, and it doesn't really fit with the last movie. That's kind of a problem. You know, I'm not really sure why they decided to structure it this way, other than we can open it up with some kind of like get quick into the action, you know, cutesy animal stuff adventure. And then as the movie continues, you find out more about what the overall plot is, what Grindelwald is up to, who, by the way, Mads Mikkelsen comes in, and this is not a slight to Johnny Depp as a person. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion about him and somebody else in the media recently, and we're not talking about that. I'm not talking about if he should have been fired or not. Not talking about that. No matter what anyone else is saying, I just wanted to put out there that I think Mads Mikkelsen not only has a better look, you know, you buy that Dumbledore and him could have a romance because he doesn't look like a fucking freakazoid like Johnny Depp did, but also, you know, Mads Mikkelsen, I think, is just a better actor in general. He's better than a lot of people, so he brings like a good, you know, gravitas to this role that doesn't really have a lot for him to do. Another issue I have is that, you know, they exposition a lot of stuff that happened, like, oh, by the way, this stuff happened in the past. We're not going to see it, though, but I'm going to tell you about it. And it kind of hinders this movie's narrative, because these characters, they say this stuff happened, but you hardly feel the weight of it. And I was trying to think, like, you know, instead of making Crimes of Grindelwald and, you know, trying to come up with stuff for Newt Scamander to do, make him the main hero and all that, maybe you should do, not to say every movie or blockbuster should try to copy the Avengers or Marvel, but maybe you should try to do like a, hey, here's Fantastic Beasts, here's the kickoff, but now let's shift to another story with a different lead character. We'll say Newt's brother. Maybe Newt's brother, we're going to explore what's going on with him and what his whole life is about, you know what I mean? Maybe we should just do a prequel film with a younger Dumbledore and Grindelwald, and just, we see those events, so that way you can come into this movie and they mention it, and you're like, yeah, I saw that in the prequel film. Got it. The approaches they made to telling these stories, it honestly is really baffling, and it gets even more baffling when you find out that wizard elections is kind of the big thing. Obviously, I'm sure, you know, they were definitely influenced by, you know, a current election that we had recently about a crazy man, you know, and it just got me thinking, you know, the ways that Grindelwald infiltrates this system. They do very little to really flesh out the political side of it, which when they started it, I was like, okay, this could be interesting. Let's see what wizard politics looks like. You know, let's flesh out these candidates. Who are these people? What are they all about? And it's just very quick, like, well, here's what's going on. Let's meet one of them very briefly, and let's just keep it going. And there's hardly any, like, I don't feel like I'm being fully invested or transported into this world. It's like I'm a spectator from afar and I can't get close enough, you know what I mean? And Grindelwald comes in and he infiltrates them and sabotages them in the dumbest way possible. You know, these are wizards. They're magic. And it seems like the rules and the legislation around their elections is just, it's so bafflingly dumb. You know, it's like for kids, especially when they also, you know, work in the Fantastic Beasts element of it. That was something that didn't work in Grindelwald for me. It was like, it felt like there was a moment where, well, we have to remind people what the first movie was. And this movie, it's like they're doing that again, but it's tying into the evil, diabolical plot of Grindelwald, who's, you know, like wizard Hitler or whatever, you know? It's like, I don't see how this fits. And I'm not trying to say, like, you know, Harry Potter or Wizarding World is for adults. Obviously not. I'm just saying there is a tonal conflict at this point where you have this other stuff that is way more interesting and you could make an interesting movie out of, but then they're like, well, actually, a lot of this election is dependent on this cute little animal thing. It's like, what's going on here? And like I said, not to say that, you know, those cute animal things are completely awful, because, you know, a lot of visual effects artists, you know, design it, make it look good, and there is some, like, cute little levity stuff injected, like with the little stick guy and the Niffler, that little, like, platypus-looking thing. It's like, yeah, there's some cute, fun little moments, like when Newt Scamander and his brother, like, doing, like, this little dance with these crab things. It's like, okay, it's cute, it's fun, and it works into, like, yeah, you know, I can, whatever, it's a fun little moment. Who cares? It's just something rather than nothing, or, you know, it's too rushed to really focus on. But there is a more interesting and a darker way to start telling this story, and as the films progress, similar to the Harry Potter series, you should probably start highlighting that more. And the way this movie was rushing and rushing and rushing throughout and not really living in any moments, it was like, this feels like, not to, I know I mentioned this in the last video I made, you know, Jurassic World Dominion is kind of like Rise of Skywalker for Jurassic. This movie is kind of like Rise of Skywalker for the entire Harry Potter series, so Fantastic Beasts and the other Harry Potter films, because, you know, it just feels like, similar to Rise of Skywalker, they are rushing to a finale. Or is it a finale? It's one of those where they're like, yeah, we're it's like, you know, stat guys are like, we see the waning interest in this series because of J.K. Rowling and the decision she's made with her franchise, not just her personal life. So either we get lucky and this movie makes a bunch of money and then we are allowed to make the next two, or this movie could potentially flop or not do that well. So why don't we leave some, like, minor room to make another one, but we'll wrap up everything else. So if this does flop, this can serve as a finale. We don't look too bad, even though we did say we were making 5 of these and we just stop at 3. But whatever, it doesn't matter. We'll do it anyways. And it just really shines through, and it sucks. You know, it doesn't work as a finale movie. It also doesn't really work as a movie. But it definitely could have. It's not really like a problem of, you know, the story is completely awful. It's like I said, there's interesting ideas that I'd like to see more of. I'd like to see them flesh out a bit more, really focus in. I would have loved, in like going back to my Marvel comparison, like if you do several different like standalone movies, and then you do this movie, the big finale, and you get all these characters back together, you're like, oh my gosh, Newt Scamander is back, oh my gosh, his brother, they're actually working together, holy shit. You know, that could be really cool. You could do something interesting with that. It could be something where it's like, you know what, maybe not as good as Harry Potter, but they built up something here, and it was kind of cool. I have to mention this now because I can't not mention it anymore. Tina, played by Catherine Waterston, is no longer in this movie, except for the very end. Very confusing because the movie starts off and all the main characters are meeting up, and Jacob, and by the way, the Jacob character is, you know, one of the shining spots of this movie. That actor does a really good job, and, you know, he's funny, he's fun to watch, but he's like, hey yo, is Tina coming? Where's Tina at? And Newt Scamander's just like, oh, she got a promotion at like the American Wizarding place and she's real busy with work. And some other, a new character who's kind of doing the stuff that Tina is doing, or would have been doing if not for something we'll talk about in a second. She's kind of like, oh yeah, I've met her a couple times because I'm also from America. Yeah, she's a pretty tremendous woman. And Newt Scamander's like, yes, she is. But she's not in this movie though, so let's keep going. But then she shows up actually in person for like 1 second, and then she shows up for like the minor epilogue that they have for like a minute. And when she shows up, I was like, oh my heart, because interacting with Newt Scamander, it's like, oh, these are the 2 leads that I wanted to see more of. Even in Crimes of Grindelwald, I was like, man, I just wish this movie was more about them hanging out, because they have a good rapport with each other. I don't know, they're fun together. And then they're mostly separated for Grindelwald, and then this, not in it. So, like, what happened there? Because the way they wrote out her character seems like oh, she couldn't make it, scheduling conflicts, whatever, but then she does show up. So what happened, and, you know, you look into it in case you didn't know, when J.K. Rowling started to talk about transgender people very negatively, Catherine Waterston posted something on Instagram kind of going, you know, you can't be a real feminist or claim to be a real feminist if you don't include transgender women, you know, if you don't support everybody as well. Not a bad statement at all, but then, you know, it's not like, I don't think J.K. Rowling ever addressed it at all. And I don't think Catherine Waterston, I think she might have said, like, it was important to do so, but there's never been any other follow-up after that. It kept saying she was in the movie, but she was not in any of the trailers, not in any of the posters. She was at the premiere, though, but she just has, like, this little screen time. J.K. Rowling probably just wrote her the fuck out of the movie because she was offended that Catherine Waterston had anything to say about her. And it just, that pettiness very much shows. And it also is now a detriment to your product. So, what the fuck? Especially when you consider, like, Queenie, who had a terrible character arc in the last one, like, she's on the bad guy side. That's important to Tina. They're sisters. You know, why would Tina, no matter what is going on in America, why would Tina not want to be a part of this? Because a part of the plot is rescuing Queenie. But then you also focus on Queenie and her character arc in this, like almost immediately she's kind of like, why did I join this side? Oh my gosh, I'm seeing some real bad stuff. I'm not sure if I want to be here. And I'm surprised they didn't just retcon it to be like, oh, she switched sides for like strategic purposes. I'm surprised they didn't just do that because she switches back by the end. Spoilers. Sorry, I don't give a fuck. This movie's out on HBO Max. If you haven't seen it yet, go fuck yourself. But you know, she switches back with ease because Jacob finally gets her in a corner and is like, come on, baby, I love you, or something. And and then, you know, movie just ends and everyone acts like everything's cool. You're cool, Queenie. No one cares that you were on the bad guy's side. You're kind of involved with, you know, these crimes. No one cares. You're good. Speaking of the crimes being committed by the bad guy side, those henchmen, the Grindel henchmen, have nothing going on personality-wise. Like, there's that one guy who, like, kind of looks like Rupert Grint, actually, which is hilarious. But everyone, like, you'll recognize faces, but there's no character there. The Lestrange character, I think his name's Karma. You know, he's carrying over from Crimes of Grindelwald. They give him the task of, you gotta infiltrate this place. And every time he's there, you don't see how he operates there. You just get the one-on-one most important bits between him and Grindelwald. But other than that, you don't see him making friends or allegiances with other henchmen or doing any tasks or, you know, uncovering any specific information. All of that just builds to, oh, he does like a cool little wizard push in the third act against the people that he's been with. But we didn't see that. What is this? Why is this character arc a thing? Really? And if we can talk about Lestrange a second, Zoe Kravitz, that death in the last movie, kind of important. You know, it affected both Newt and his brother, Theseus. In this movie, not really mentioned at all. Theseus has a bit at the end where, you know, once again, spoilers, I don't give a fuck. You know, Mads Mikkelsen escapes. It's one of those movies where they wrap everything up, but if they want to make another one, you know, he's still out there. And maybe they can work some new plot in. Theseus is just like, you'll catch him, right? For, you know, Zoe Kravitz or whatever, because I'm really upset about that. And Dumbledore's just like, yeah, of course. And then it ends. No more mention of it. Karma Lestrange has a scene where, you know, Mads Mikkelsen's like, oh, I killed your sister. Mind if I get rid of that memory? All right. And then I guess Karma just forgets. And then that's not brought up again later. That he doesn't remember that at all. I don't know what they were thinking. I talk about all these character arcs and the fumbling of the writing, but it's nothing bad against these actors. You know, they all have an opportunity to be part of this franchise, get more roles, get recognition. You know, it's a job. I get it, you know, and especially for the people that started off with that first movie and are now kind of stuck with it. You know, you had no idea of where it was gonna go originally. You just kind of have like ideas of like, oh, it could do this, could do that. Yeah, this could be a fun thing to be a part of, and then you're stuck because of contract. You're like, oh fuck, I gotta keep doing these. But either way, you know, Eddie Redmayne is still good as Newt Scamander. You know, I still like him, but his character just doesn't really have an arc this time around. That's why I said he doesn't need to be the main character of this whole series, especially if Tina's not around, because outside of whatever happened in the first movie, there's not much else to that character. It's not like he's the strongest wizard or the most powerful. He's a zookeeper, you know, he knows spells, but he's a zookeeper. He's not like his brother who's like an agent. He should be at least like a side character for like a big team up at this point, but he's technically the lead. Jude Law is still good as Dumbledore, but like similar to what I said about Mads Mikkelsen as Grindelwald, there just needs to be a bit more meat to this whole thing, you know? And they just exposition the meat to you. That's not the same as experiencing it or living it. It's just not, it's not the same. I like Theseus, the actor who plays Theseus. I think he's fun as that role. There's a new actress whose name I'm forgetting, but she, like I said, she's the one who kind of replaces Tina in this one. But she was, you know, she was good. You know, when she showed up, I was like, you know, this could be a fun character. I wish maybe we saw a bit more of her. Too bad this is probably the last Harry Potter movie in all of existence, because because this could be a fun character to keep following in other things, to do more stuff with. You know, it's a bummer that she's just here to replace Tina. However, a character that has bad writing and also bad acting. Sorry to dunk on this person, but Ezra Miller, man, it's the performance has only gone down to looking like this, and I'm also kind of talking like this too. Even as the character starts to become more of a good guy, the performance is still just kind of like really like Ezra Miller weasel, you know. And it's like, that is not, that makes the character even less interesting than I already find his character arc in this. It's very rushed, I think, is mostly what it is, because the Crimes of Grindelwald ends in a way where you're like, okay, what's up with this? How are we going to explore this? What's up? And, you know, the exposition stuff, but then the confrontation happens like much sooner than I expected in this movie, and it leads to similar to how Queenie very easily changed sides, it leads to Credence very easily seemingly changing sides, and just all is kind of forgiven-ish. You know, this character has been told so many things about his life, about his past. I don't know, it didn't work for me. Like I said, it feeds into the overall problem of it just feels like they are very much so rushing through this. And Ezra Miller is having a breakdown. that also didn't help, because I saw this movie knowing that stuff, and, you know, more stuff has kind of come out. Look into it. It's kind of weird. What's going on? It seems like it might be more than just a mental health breakdown at this point, but, you know, I guess we'll see where that goes. So that also hindered the experience, but also, you know, they were just bad already. To make matters worse, you know, David Yates, who usually, he directs these movies pretty well, and there's still some bits in here, like, I already mentioned, like, there's some cute animal stuff, visual effects are fine, action when it gets started, yeah, wizard action is fun, you know, who cares? You know, it's cool to see a solid score from James Newton Howard. You know, wonderful job. That's like the scores for these movies. That's the consistent through line. But even then, there's moments in this movie where I don't know, something about the direction, the technical stuff gets kind of off. Like, you'll see some like CG creatures, and someone character will try to hold it, but you can see like the space where they're not holding it, you know what I mean? Like, so there's some stuff like that, some obvious kind of CG visual stuff. And if I'm being honest, some of the Fantastic Beasts CG shots have not been the greatest, you know, especially compared to Harry Potter. So that's consistent, but it's still a problem they haven't fixed. But there's other stuff, like, you know, there's some dialogue, you know, leading into a certain scene with Jacob and the new character replacing Tina, that I was just kind of like, what is going on here? You know, why is this so awkward? There's a thing with bags where it seems like they don't know how to count the number of bags they're supposed to have at one point. There's a moment where this creature that is supposed to decide the election, you know, as I mentioned before, the cute little shit infiltrating the more interesting, darker stuff, it goes to a person and picks them as like, you're not a candidate running, but you're the purest. And that character's like, no, pick someone else. But I was thinking, like, wait, that character is not pure at all. What are you talking about? What are the rules here? Oh my god, you know, it was just another just thing to keep this spiraling downwards and waning my interest completely. Look, solid practical costume design, set work, you know, everything that you would expect to make a solid blockbuster is there. It's just the writing and the storytelling, every single creative choice made. It's just, there's nothing they can do to really win me over and really experience the magic again. You know, Fantastic Beasts, the first one, was still at least able to do that for some bits. And this is like, yeah, there's some cute animal stuff, but it's not enough because there's so much other stuff going on and this is going really quickly. Very disappointing. I'm going to give Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore a C-. I think this is my least favorite one in the entire Wizarding World series, because as much as Grindelwald was boring, you know, and jam-packed with exposition and stuff, this was the one that just felt the most vapid and most studio. Like, okay, just get the shit done. And Grindelwald has the studio decision-making of, well, we need to set up a bunch of shit for other stuff, but this is the one where it's like, well, now we need to set up a bunch of shit and just get this fucking thing over with. I don't think they are making that fourth one, I'm gonna be honest with you, or the fifth one. However, there was a report saying that J.K. Rowling met with David Zaslav, I don't know how to pronounce his name, or whatever, or some head of Warner Brothers Discovery right now, whatever, to potentially talk about streaming Wizarding World stuff. You know, HBO Max shows. So maybe that's their future. I don't care. But if you've seen Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, which you probably have because this review is really late, I'm sorry, leave in the comments below what you thought of it, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.